There is no doubt in the minds of those honestly watching the lawsuits against Trump and not just celebrating him getting what he deserves. What we are witnessing is blatant election interference designed purposely to push constant negative media of Trump while preventing him from campaigning, thus hindering his election chances. How can I say that with such confidence? Because it was done in 2020, and the group responsible bragged about what they did. Knowing that, it is obvious what we're watching right now is more of their not only undemocratic, but obvious tyrannical shenanigans. Rosie the Riveter here, dropping more truth bombs to destroy fake news and propaganda. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get new videos when they are uploaded. Now, let's get into today's riveting topic. Democrats and media have contested every Republican presidential victory since Bush versus Gore, including objecting to state electors. Leading up to 2020, Democrats issued multiple warnings regarding voting machines, putting their legitimacy, accuracy, and validity in question.
I continue to think that our voting machines are too vulnerable.
Researchers have repeatedly demonstrated that ballot recording machines and other voting systems are susceptible to tampering.
Even hackers with limited prior knowledge, tools, and resources are able to breach voting machines in a matter of minutes.
In 2018, electronic voting machines in Georgia and Texas deleted votes for certain candidates or switched votes from one candidate to another.
The biggest seller of voting machines is doing something that violates Cybersecurity 101, directing that you install remote access software, which would make a machine like that, a magnet for fraudsters and hackers.
There are a lot of states that are dealing with antiquated machines, right, which are vulnerable to being hacked.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines. Those that are being used in many states.
Yet once Biden was pronounced the winner of the 2020 election, they insisted it was the most secure election in the history of America. And the machines were 100% safe. Objection to electors was unconstitutional, and anyone who even thought otherwise was a traitor. Then Time magazine published an article that defines their idea of secure and democratic. And it is anything but. Entitled The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election, Time's Molly Ball eagerly explained how a well-funded cabal of powerful people, her words not mine, worked behind the scenes to ensure a Trump defeat in the 2020 election under the guise of defending democracy. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protest and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and AFL-CIO published on Election Day. She knows those are two sides of the same coin, right? And despite which one comes up in a toss, the American people always lose. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. The fact that Molly describes the countless, massively damaging and violent riots of 2020 as sometimes destructive tells you she is not being honest with her readers. During the riots, communities, a large portion of which were minority areas, lost their homes, their businesses, and their cities, resulting in billions of dollars in damages. She's just as deceptive with her assault on democracy charge, which I've already addressed in several other videos. So, what was their secret plan? The summer uprising had shown that people power could have a massive impact. Activists began preparing to reprise the demonstrations if Trump tried to steal the election. Americans plan widespread protests if Trump interferes with election, Reuters reported in October, one of many such stories. More than 150 liberal groups, from the Women's March to the Sierra Club to Color of Change, from Democrats.com to the Democratic Socialists of America joined the Protect the Results Coalition. The group's now defunct website had a map listing 400 planned post-election demonstrations to be activated via text message as soon as November 4th. To stop the coup, they feared the left was ready to flood the streets. So their joint effort consisted of exclusively left-wing radical foot soldiers, by their own admission, which undoubtedly included Antifa, BLM, and others who were the sometimes destructive groups of 2020. Keep them in mind as I will address them a little later. Massive, well-funded efforts were organized for mail-in ballots, pushing illegal and unconstitutional laws and decrees, all under the guise of COVID, claiming they were to ensure all votes are cast and counted. But why? AFL-CIO's Mike Podhorzer, the architect of the entire plan, explains. Podhorzer, meanwhile, was warning everyone he knew that polls were underestimating Trump's support. The data he shared with media organizations who would be calling the elections was tremendously useful to understand what was happening as the votes rolled in, according to a member of a major network's political unit who spoke with Podhorzer before Election Day. Most analysts had recognized there would be a blue shift in key battlegrounds, the surge of votes breaking towards Democrats, driven by tallies and mail-in ballots. Meaning, they conjectured, predicted, and propagandized the tallies implied there was a blue wave coming. But they hadn't comprehended how much better Trump was likely to do on Election Day. Being able to document how big the absentee wave would be and the variance by state was essential. In other words, they purposely orchestrated and documented a Democratic mail-in wave narrative so analysts could reference it to counter Trump's Election Day success as key states continued to receive and count far after Election Day. It is imperative that election officials be given the space and time to count every vote in accordance with applicable laws. Except they broke multiple state and federal laws by illegally changing election laws, providing unrequested absentee ballots to all residents, legal and illegal, registered and unregistered, counting non- and late-dated ballots, ballots without signature verification, ballots with obvious false signatures, and other violations, primarily under the pretense of the deadly COVID pandemic. Now, we've had elections that weren't decided on Election Day, but that is supposed to be the exception, not the expected rule, until now. We call on the media, the candidates, and the American people to exercise patience with the process and trust in our system, even if it requires more time than usual. For good measure, they added, although we may not always agree on desired outcomes up and down the ballot, we are united in our call for the American democratic process to proceed without violence, intimidation, or any other tactic that makes us weaker as a nation. Really, without violence and intimidation. Then what were all the organized protests filled with proven violent left-wing activists ready to flood the streets at a moment's notice for exactly? Regardless, Podhorzer remained calm on election night. But Podhorzer was unperturbed when I spoke to him that night. The returns were exactly in line with his modeling. He had been warning for weeks that Trump voters' turnout was surging. As the numbers dribbled out, he could tell that as long as all the votes were counted, Trump would lose. Let me fix that. As long as all the ballots were counted. Did you notice he didn't say Biden would win? He said Trump would lose, exactly in line with his modeling. This was never about securing an honest election. It was about securing a Trump loss. That is what they meant by saving the election. Do you honestly think the endless polls are to show the pulse of the nation, or could they be used to shape it? Some people still insist Trump stole 2016, including Hillary, because the polls indicated she would win. Remember, it was essential they got the absentee blue wave documented. As Podherzer presented data supporting his modeling to those panicking over positive Trump results, this happened. While he was talking, Fox News surprised everyone by calling Arizona for Biden. The media refused to call states obviously for Trump, yet using polls and historical trends, Fox News and the AP called red state Arizona for Biden within hours. Remember, Arizona claimed it was too close to call for the next 3 weeks as they continued to find and count ballots. So how was the media so confident to give it to Biden on election night, and why? Regardless, many were still nervous as they watched results come in. According to Angela Peoples, director for the Democracy Defense Coalition, the conversation that followed was a difficult one, led by the activists charged with the protest strategy. We wanted to be mindful of when was the right time to call for moving masses of people into the street. As much as they were eager to mount a show of strength, mobilizing immediately could backfire and put people at risk. Protests that devolved into violent clashes would give Trump a pretext to send in federal agents or troops as he had over the summer. Interesting. We were told the cabal organized protest groups to fight a Trump steal, but here they're discussing when to take to the streets as a Trump victory nears. You know, if Trump had won, accusations of rigging, fraud, and election stealing would have consumed the news cycles, as they had in 2016, but now with riots in the streets. But since the documented Biden victory materialized, any such accusations are now criminal. Trump was clearly winning on election night, including the 5 key toss-up states, which the media refused to call. And, as if it was following a model, those states began flipping to Biden over the next several hours and days, as they continued to count mail-in ballots, and those questioning the endless counting were targeted, bullied, and discredited. They were crowding the vote counting tables, refusing to wear masks, heckling the mostly black workers. Typical liberalism. If you can't defend, demean. Molly vilified Republicans because she couldn't tell you the real reason why they were there. In several key Democrat cities, in a totally unprecedented move, they paused counting on election night. That is why Republican poll watchers showed up, to make sure everything was copacetic. They were there, just like the secret cabal, to protect the election. But instead of working together, Democrats highly restricted GOP election observers, using social distancing as one excuse. In Philadelphia, they told the watchers to use binoculars. In Detroit, they put up cardboard so no one could see what was going on. Seriously, why would you block people from witnessing democracy? And just like Podherzer predicted, Biden's numbers just seemed to skyrocket overnight as ballot dumps came in. In several cases, Biden received 100% of the vote. That is statistically impossible. Yet somehow, this secret cabal knew it would happen and were not concerned about losing the election to Trump at all. And anyone who questions it is vilified, bullied, and canceled.
Secondly, we're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Art Reyes III, a We the People Michigan activist, told Molly, for months, conservative groups had been sowing suspicion about urban vote fraud. The language was, they're going to steal the election. There will be fraud in Detroit long before any votes were cast. Ironically, This entire article is about a group of people who believed Trump was going to steal the election, getting together so as to design a plan that would sow that exact same narrative against Trump and his supporters, and then claim they saved the election. But Republicans are the tyrants, right? Likewise, the cabal feared Trump trying to bribe people to get the election turned in his way, as expressed by Ian Bassin, co-founder of Protect Democracy. His solution: do it better. Of course he's going to try to offer them something. Head of the Space Force, ambassador to whatever? We can't compete with that by offering carrots. We need a stick. And sticks they found, one of which was reported earlier in the article. Vanita Gupta, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Gupta had been nominated for Associate Attorney General by President Biden. And wouldn't you know it, she got that position. Is it me, or do they seem to keep projecting onto Trump the tyrannical things they do? Then we get to some January 6th mis, mal, and disinformation, which the left still continues to push despite it all being debunked. Trump addressed the crowd that afternoon, peddling the lie that lawmakers or Vice President Mike Pence could reject states' electoral votes. He told them to go to the Capitol and fight like hell. Then he returned to the White House as they sacked the building. As lawmakers fled for their lives and his own supporters were shot and trampled, Trump praised the rioters as very special. In September of 2022, Pelosi and congressional Democrats passed a law reforming the way the slate of electors are counted, ensuring the VP cannot return them to the states for recertification. If Trump was lying, then why the change? Because he wasn't lying. They are. Verifying those votes is the duty of the VP and Congress as part of the Electoral Count Act of 1887, later becoming part of the U.S. Code, which developed after several states sent competing slates of electors to Congress in 1876, resulting in weeks of gridlock as Congress tried to rectify the situation. Trump did say we need to fight like hell, just like all politicians say during speeches.
Are you ready to fight?
Don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
I feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school.
If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
Okay. When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
And you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
People will do what they do.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
We're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the
Well, this is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. And for those of you who are soldiers, make them pay.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
But Molly again deceived her readers by purposely leaving out how Trump told the protesters to do it.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
While there were some broken windows and a few random incidents, thanks to the now released January 6 tapes, which Pelosi, Liz Cheney, and the committee purposely hid, more and more evidence is proving the bad actors were not Trump supporters. Video proves MAGA protesters peacefully and patriotically walked the halls, after being allowed in by the police, who smiled, waved, and shook hands with them. Only one person was shot, and that was by a Capitol Police officer. The left spent the summer rioting against the officer-involved death of felon George Floyd, with Democrats absolutely silent as officers were attacked, ambushed, and killed just for wearing the uniform. And now we're supposed to believe they all of a sudden love the cops? See my full analysis on the events and videos of January 6th in the link below. In addition, I also have a video which lays out the timeline on when and why the lawmakers fled. It was not because of the MAGA protesters. They were still at Trump's speech when this happened. The lawmakers were leaving because 2 bombs were found, one each at the DNC and RNC headquarters. Interestingly, the bomber had never been found despite video of him. Yet, the FBI is still tracking down every grandma, veteran, and everyday American, including those who never set foot in the Capitol, and prosecuting them. Remember, cabal organizers stated groups were ready to take to the streets if Trump tried to steal the election, which they insisted he was doing on January 6th. However, Republicans in 2020 were moving forward with the objections because they had something Democrats didn't: a senator who also objected. Trump supporters worked for weeks to secure senator support. So why would they have done anything to jeopardize their right to object? They wouldn't. But don't you think left-wing cabal groups who vowed to stop Trump at all costs would? Remember, the organizers said the timing of their protest must be impeccable. The chaos started the moment both the representative and senator voiced their objections to Arizona's electors. When Congress reconvened, Nancy Pelosi immediately certified the slate of electors without objections. Exactly what the cabal wanted. Honestly, ask yourself, who had more to gain from violence and chaos? And that will tell you who was really behind it. And the cherry on the top was the media fell right in place and blamed and vilified Trump for all of it. I'm telling you right now, they are planning the same thing for this election. And if you don't think those left-wing activist groups won't hit the streets again in brand new MAGA hats carrying American flags, you really have no idea what is truly happening. In my video, My 2 Cents on massive election fraud those in power do not want you to see, I show enough evidence in Michigan, Arizona, and several other swing states that proves much of the suspicion and accusations from conservatives was 100% spot on. In fact, so much evidence of true election fraud has been discovered that many are now believing President Trump did in fact win 2020. One incident at a time can be dismissed, but when reviewed as a whole, it's overwhelming. And here's the rub. Trump knew it. He had all the evidence, and yet he still peacefully left the White House and let Biden assume the presidency. The Time article paints everything Trump said and did as a lie or dictatorial, knowing the reader will just accept the fact checkers' explanations because they've been saying it for so long. The Nazis said the Jews were the cause of all their problems, and the gas chambers were just showers, even as the stench of burning and rotting flesh saturated the air. The Germans closed their windows, closed their doors, and closed their minds, convincing themselves the government wouldn't lie to me, while others cowered in the corner, terrified of their fate if they opposed the Nazis. Hitler defined the big lie in Mein Kampf, stating, "In the primitive simplicity of the people's minds, they more readily fall victims to the big lie than the small lie, since they themselves often tell small lies in little matters, but would be ashamed to resort to large-scale falsehoods. It would never come into their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe others could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. Even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver and will continue to think there may be some other explanation. For the grossly impudent lie always leaves traces behind it, even after it has been nailed down, a fact which is known to all expert liars in this world and to all who conspire together in the art of lying. Tell me, how is the vitriol against Trump and MAGA any different than that against the Jews in Nazi Germany? The Mockingbird media has been lying for so long and convincing people to only trust what they report while censoring opposing opinions that some people just can't seem to wake up. And the cabal is counting on that, just like Hitler said. This is the deepest and severest case of Stockholm Syndrome ever. Biden's DOJ and FBI are targeting their political opponents and incarcerating them. Conservatives and Trump are silenced by mainstream and social media. But MAGA are Nazis, right? In October of 2020, the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden laptop story. Fact checkers and legacy media insisted it was a false story, giving basically no coverage. 51 intelligence officials signed a document claiming it was Russian disinformation, which Biden heralded during a debate. Social media censored the New York Post, while others lost their accounts completely for posting anything about the laptop. Fast forward to today, the laptop was admitted into evidence during Hunter Biden's federal gun possession trial, confirming it is his and it is real. But the FBI knew that. They've had it since 2019. They all lied. About 17% of Biden voters said they would not have voted for him if they had known about the laptop and other suppressed stories regarding him. They outright lied to the American people about the laptop and other key facts, manipulating who we decided to vote for. What makes you think they're telling you anything truthful about Trump, January 6th, and MAGA now? If they were that bold back in 2020 to keep Trump out of office, how much more eager, or more accurately desperate, are they now? But Molly puts in writing, if Trump did anything to push back on what the cabal admits they put in place, unconstitutional laws regarding mail-in ballots, excessive amounts of said ballots, and extended counting periods, there would be protests in the streets. However, years later, the country is now being presented with the evidence many of us already knew. The cabal was unconstitutional, undemocratic, and nothing short of tyrannical. And Trump was 100% correct in calling it out. At the beginning of the article, Molly explained why she was even writing the piece. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream. A well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies, working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. Don't believe what you see, folks. Believe what we tell you. They weren't rigging the election. They were fortifying it. And they believe the public needs to understand the system's fragility in order to ensure that democracy in America endures. Do you mean the fragility that comes when a well-funded cabal of powerful people work together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information?
Disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
Ian Basson added, every attempt to interfere with the proper outcome of the election was defeated. Anybody else wonder what his definition of the proper outcome is? But it's massively important for the country to understand that it didn't happen accidentally. The system didn't work magically. Democracy is not self-executing. But remember, they did all these secret things to save the election. They had to undermine democracy to preserve democracy, as all is permissible because Orange Man bad. They had to fight Trump's tyranny by doing all those tyrannical acts they accuse him of doing. I encourage you to read the article yourself. Notice the confidence in a Trump loss with insurance of massive groups of protesters at the ready to flood the streets if somehow Trump did win. Never accepting it would be a legitimate victory, but always assuming he was stealing it. Still think the Ferguson, George Floyd, and other such riots are grassroots gatherings, folks? Seriously, ask yourself, how was Podhurtzer so darn confident on election night that Biden would win even as Trump was ahead in so many states? How did they honestly know that there would be such a late, massive return in mail-in ballots that would fall so heavily in Biden's favor? Why did Hillary tell Biden not to concede under any circumstances? What did they know that they are not telling you? So, what are they planning for 2024? The 2016 Russian collusion insurance policy was proven a total hoax after evidence established Hillary Clinton and the DNC bought the dossier that still has Trump under a microscope. Accusations of trying to steal the election justified the formation of a secret cabal in 2020, a tactic they have already resurrected. Immediately following Trump's 2024 announcement, he was indicted in 5 cases on 91 counts. Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis both hired prosecutors with connections to Biden and the DNC. The mainstream media calls Trump a convicted felon and insurrectionist, hoping it will influence voters like the Hunter laptop lie did. But the people are finally seeing through their big lie, and they're calling foul. Same with these news stories. Reports and lies regarding another pandemic. This one is the bird flu. Warnings of a cyber attack possibly endangering our election system, so we're back to unreliable machines again. Democrats already indicating they will not certify a Trump victory, while January 6 political prisoners are still in jail awaiting their trials. Democrats in swing states working to give election boards the power to reject electors since Nancy took it away from Congress. Biden is giving amnesty and voting rights to illegals. I've given you the facts here and in other videos. It's up to you if you want to see it for what it is, or if you want to ignore all the evidence indicting the news media, the deep state, and Hollywood. The true traitors of our country are happily telling you what they are doing and window dressing it with democracy. How much longer are you going to accept their tyranny and enslavement and view Trump as the dictator? It truly is a choice between life and death. I'm Rosie the Riveter, and that's my 2 cents. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos on my blog, Liberating Letters, at thefaxpaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Fax Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos. Sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.